Good evening. I'd like to call the Winterville Town Council Budget Process Meeting to order. Today is Monday, May the 4th, 2026, and the time now is 6:01. Invocation tonight will be given by Councilwoman Dr. Brandon Harrell, and after the invocation, we will stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
If you all would bow your heads, please. Our Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for the citizens of this community, the town of Winterville. We thank you for this council. Thank you for the department heads and all that has a hand in helping everyone in this town. Tonight, as we move forward with our budget process meeting, Lord, give us the minds and the hearts to steward all monies that we have well, as we steward your people well. Thank you for traveling mercies, life, health, and strength. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Could you please stand, face the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And again, I'd like to welcome everyone tonight to the first 3 budget process.
This is actually the first of 4.
First of 4, okay, I'm sorry. First of 4 tonight. And I'd like to thank people that are watching us and the people that we have in our audience tonight. Thank y'all for coming out. Next up will be the roll call. If you use your clicker, please.
I don't think we're using the
well, all right.
tonight.
Well, I just call Councilman Moore.
Present.
Councilwoman Smith.
Present.
Councilwoman Robinson.
Present.
Councilwoman Harrell.
Present.
Councilwoman Hawkins.
Present.
And Mayor Hines. All accounted for. All right. Next up would be the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion on the floor, motion made by Councilwoman Harrell, second by Councilwoman Smith. Any discussion on the agenda? If none, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Next up is item for discussion. I turn it over to the manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Just a reminder, this is our first meeting, and we call it a budget progress meeting. And this is to predominantly focus on our revenue streams. And with that, I will ask our Finance Director, Jessica Manning, to come forward, and she will go over the handout that's on the overhead, as well as you all have a copy at your seats.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Tonight we'll go over some of the revenue predictions for next fiscal year. So the draft budget is in the works, and we can anticipate a draft being delivered on May 18th. The fiscal year budget calendar has already been approved for council. Our current year tax rate is 45 cents, and that tax rate was reduced from 0.475 to 0.45, and that was after the 2024 tax revaluation. Our property tax budget will be calculated with a 98% collection rate, and this is our normal collection rate. So far, our present year valuation is $1,359,307,000, and the new valuation so far has come in at $1,363,418,000. For sales and use tax revenue, that does continue to be difficult to budget for due to economic uncertainties. Economists do anticipate growth in statewide sales tax revenues for the coming year, but do expect that growth rate to be moderate. The general uncertainty in the economy, particularly related to inflation and international conflicts, continues to make sales tax difficult to budget for. Economists still are expecting population growth, possible higher tax refunds, and increased economic activity that will boost sales tax revenues. These revenues, they do run on a 3-month lag. We are recommending that the town use a 2% growth factor compared to current year's revenues, which is a little bit more conservative than what the league is recommending at 3.1. And this will generate an estimated increase in the amount of $232,488, and that's over the original budget revenue for the current fiscal year. Powell bill distributions are expected to remain consistent with the current fiscal year with an estimated amount of $386,000. In the past, utility franchise tax revenues have been stable from year to year, but the trend has shifted some and increased in the last 3 fiscal years. And these changes are largely due to rising electricity prices and increased volatility in weather patterns. Economists suggest a return to modest growth for the next fiscal year and project a 0.85% increase in electricity sales tax revenue. These revenues are expected to be approximately $459,000, and this will generate an estimated increase of around $8,772. For building inspections, the department continues to be steady. Based on conversations with our planning and inspections department, developers are continuing to move forward at a solid pace, and this will allow revenues to remain constant. We are estimating those revenues to be around $185,000. Total interest income is projected to decrease compared to last year as economists are expecting the federal funds rate to fall to around a range of around 3% to 3.25% by the end of 2026. And we are estimating interest income to be around $516,000 for the general fund. For all other general fund revenues, we're expecting them to be slightly higher for the next fiscal year. For our enterprise funds, electric revenues are expected to increase slightly with an estimated growth rate of 1%, showing electric sales increase in the amount of $70,957 to approximately $7,166,000. Water revenues are expected to increase slightly with an estimated growth rate of 1% as well, showing water sales to be approximately $1,614,000. For our sewer revenues, that we are expecting them to increase as well with an estimated growth rate around 1%, with sewer sales to be approximately $3,229,000. This increase does include an $8.20 sewer rate increase, and that is needed to cover the cost of the pump station rehabilitation project. Winterville, who's a member of the Continuum Metropolitan Sewers District, will see an increase in the amount of $88,000. The current year's budget is $1,263,000, and that will be increased to $1,351,000. This increase does equate to about a 7% increase in our contribution. For stormwater sales rate, we're expecting around a 1% also, and that revenue increase would increase from around $535,000 to $540,000. For a few notable items for next year, First National Insurance, they are anticipating that the renewal will have an 18.94% increase in health insurance premiums. and no increase in dental insurance premiums. We do have one loan in the general fund that will no longer be on the books in next fiscal year, and that in the amount of $88,000, and that's for the E1 ladder truck. We do have new debt service payments scheduled for the 26-27 fiscal year. For the general fund, it's a total amount of $176,350. That's for the inspections truck, 2 police cars, a fire truck, it's a Ford F-150, and the air packs, Pullet Works, dump truck, and mowers. For the water fund, we will have new debt service payment in the amount of $44,740. And that's for the radar, GPR, and a valve exerciser trailer. For the sewer fund, we'll also have a new debt service payment in the amount of $59,281, and that's for the new camera system. As a reminder, the town did receive $8,397,000 sewer loan for the construction of the pump station rehab project, and this is a 20-year loan with payments of $419,863 a year, and we'll start back paying that in May of 2027. The last item is the town is expected to receive grant funding in the 26-27 fiscal year, and in the amount of $510,000 for police radios, $750,000 for the construction of fire training grounds, and $1 million for the water looping project.
Y'all have any questions? Anybody have any questions for Ms. Manning?
Yes, I have one. Mayor, the question is, into your enterprise fund, we were speaking of electric revenue, the amount of sale increase will be up to about 70,000. Is that without an increase?
Yes.
Without an increase. Okay, and also for the water that you was talking about, I think it was what, 1.6, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's without an increase.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's my question.
Right.
Okay.
Councilman Moy, if I may, those revenue numbers are just that, revenue numbers. It does not take into account the expenditure side of things that will then leave us with more than likely a deficit when trying to figure out how to cover those deficits. And I did want to follow up on the health insurance
Yes.
item. That is I think we got those numbers as late as today. The initial increase was 24%, and it was negotiated down to 18.94%. That's with no change in the level of health insurance currently. That is the highest increase in the 16 and a half years I've been here.
Yes.
It is not unusual. I think there are a lot of other jurisdictions seeing even much larger increases than that. However, that 18.94% increase is going to bring forward an additional if nothing changes, an additional $300,000 to cover employees with the current plan we have at the current benefit levels we have. Again, there are no increases in dental insurance premiums. So as of today, that's an additional $300,000 if nothing changes that we'll have to address as well. I just wanted to point that out. And in 10 years of renewal history, starting with 2015, the annual increases in percentage numbers are as follows: 9.7% in 2015, 12.68 in 16, 9.2% in 17, 7% in 18, 5% in 19, 7% in 20, 2% in 21, 0% in '22, 2% in '23, 1.59% in '24, and 2.98% last year. So you can see an 18.94% is a stark increase, comparatively speaking. So what we'll be doing is we'll be trying to determine what's affordable if we have to look at change in benefit levels, and we will certainly be prepared to report back what we are recommending when we're together next time.
I do have a question. There was no mention of the revenue that comes from the monies received for the community room. So currently, in town, if you live in town and you want to rent for 1 day, that's $425 a day with fee and deposit, which is refundable, so $225, and then out of town is $300. Can somebody share with me where those revenues are disseminated, and how do we track how much money is coming in? How do we track how many people are renting, and where is that money reappropriated? That is my first question.
We do have a line item that's just for community room rental, and that goes into the general fund. I do not know what that revenue is off the top of my head, though.
Will we be provided with that revenue?
I can get that to you.
Not per se to me, but the next budget meeting, I would like to see that and how that works in terms of a track of how many people are renting from in town and out of town. And you said that money goes back into the general fund?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then with that general fund, is it filtered then via through Parks and Recreation or just anywhere? That is my question.
It's just held in the general fund.
And just disseminated per need. Okay, so I'm going to ask that that be provided by the next budget meeting. And then my next question, if somebody can guide me, when looking at the enterprise fund, hold on. When looking at the enterprise fund, there is an increase, or I thought I heard that there would be an increase per, including $8.20 sewer rate increase. Is this collective via the Contentia Metropolitan Sewer, or is that Winterville? And yeah, that's my first question. How does that work?
So the $8.20 increase would be in town. It would be to cover the debt service on the pump station rehabilitation project we currently have ongoing. So that is estimated to be added to our in-town rate structure.
So this has been placed into the budget. Is that prospectively? Because I do not recall voting on that. I do recall that there's supposed to be a scheduled electricity increase. And if I'm not correct, please correct me. And I think that's what these discussions are for. I just want to be clear.
Right. So anything that we're discussing tonight is what's estimated to be in the proposed budget.
And
So, I'm sorry, the $8.20 proposed sewer rate increase is just that proposed and would be included in the draft budget that will be coming to you.
And so the electric proposed increase that's supposed to go into effect July, that's totally different.
I'm not aware, I'm looking at Anthony, but I'm not sure that there is a proposed electric fund increase. Electric rate increase.
Mr. Bowers, if you could please, there's supposed to be an increase coming up. Am I?
No, ma'am, we haven't recommended any rate increase. The July 1 was maybe a reference to the power cost adjustment where we're trying to get the funds reimbursed by July 1 that we lost because of the events. But as far as a rate increase, we are looking at a rate study to bring back to the council that would be done to, but we're not quite there yet to bring that back to the council. So a rate study is the next step, and then we will bring that back to the council for discussion and review.
Okay, thank you, and that is why I had the question, because it is the sewer that will be proposed, the $8.20.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, during the budget meeting.
Correct.
Okay, thank you so much.
Councilwoman Hawkins, if I could finish, make sure I answer all of your questions. The amount that is set aside for our part of what we pay to the CMSD, Contentnia Metropolitan Sewerage District, is increasing by $88,225 for the new budget year. Again, if council may remember, the entities of Winterville, Ayton, and Grifton are members of that district, and we pay for the amount of flow that each jurisdiction sends to Grifton to be treated. Again, this is the treatment portion of our sewer process. We have the collection system part in town, and then we have the treatment part that is sent to Grifton. So when we talk about the 1.2 million increasing to 1.3 and some change, that is due to an increase in our proportionate share based off of the flow that Winterville sent to CMSD to be treated in the past 12, it's based on the previous 12 months flow.
I do have a question for you. Can you talk us through the rationale for using the, what was it, 2.0% growth factor instead of the 3.1% based upon what we as a council and our citizens are seeing as far as rapid growth? Can you just kind of give us the rationale of using the 2.0 versus the 3.1 growth factor?
You looking at this, for the sales and use tax?
Yes, for the growth factor.
It's basically based off, historical data and kind of being on a little bit on the conservative side too, and not wanting to overestimate as well. We've done pretty well estimating a little bit lower than the league in the past, so we're kind of going off that.
Okay, just wanted our, folks that are in the audience and our listeners to just kind of understand why we're choosing to go for a lower percentage of growth factor. Also, if we exceed that 2.0%, where would those funds be allocated? So, we are very conservative, but if we exceed that growth factor and those revenues come in, how is that distributed?
Well, it all comes into the general fund.
Okay, all right.
So anything over and above what is collected is not being proportioned out to the departments. It's held because the departments are held to their individualized approved budgets. So unless we have the budget amendments like you see throughout the year,
Right.
They are to live by the numbers that are approved as of July 1st.
Thank you.
I do have another question, and this may be shared in our next budget meetings. As per the budget highlights and outlooks that was given to us a few months ago, it was determined that the town has $12.4 million in unassigned funds. This was mentioned during our power cost adjustment presentation, in which it was shared that I'm going to say, unless I need to look specifically, that some of that would be going towards the multi-purpose center, over $300,000. I was not present, and it's on this. I don't know if anybody can recall, but I can pull it up. I want to make sure that is that the case? Was that prospectively, or is that definitive? And if so, did we vote on that to come out, or was that just a gist of what could be? And the assistant town manager can share that, but while he's doing it, I can find it from the presentation. and I had a question at that time about that. I want to be clear, and the reason why I'm asking these questions is I came on the board, voted in 2023 initially, and then went through 2 other budget meetings, and this is the first time we're doing this that I can recall in this format, like a process meeting really quickly. So I know when we had our other budget meetings, there was, space for extensive questions. So that was just my question.
Sure, and if I could speak to that. So we do this, what we call a budget progress meeting every year. So this format has been used previously, and this is to really focus in on what we anticipate revenues to be. I think you're referring to our workshops where you have a draft budget, and we get into the meat, if you will. You all know in the first meeting, what the deficit looks like between revenues and expenditures. You see what departments have requested. You see the full picture, and we go through usually, as you say, the specific questions. So the progress meetings tonight, usually we have it at this time. Most of the times, maybe the end of April. The league has then sent out their recommendations of what we should project in terms of state shared revenues, and then past that, what we anticipate any other revenues might look like in the coming year based on economic forecast, et cetera. So does that answer?
Yes, it does. I just do not recall it being provided to us in such a concise manner.
Yes.
But I will go back and look, and that is why I have those questions. There has been a variety of questions per property tax rate, per the multi-purpose center, per the power cost adjustment. So I just want to be clear, although this is a progress, budget progress, that, it was space to ask those questions if they were related to this.
Sure. So
Because this is, to me, appears to be like a summary.
Well, of revenues again, so it'd be difficult, I think, to answer some of the questions until you get the other half, the expenditure half. So, and if, for comparison, if you'd like the one we held in, I think, April of last year, I'd be glad to send it to you just so you can compare.
Sure.
Be glad to.
If it was sent in an attachment, I can reference it. And then, thank you again, this is via the revenue,
Projection.
this is the revenue projections. And then, so that would probably also answer, I know it was in this, presentation where that would have been expenditures for
Right.
the, multi-purpose center. And so I guess I will wait till that time. But again, I just want to be clear on what's being spent, what we're
Right,
getting.
absolutely.
Thank you. And then just back to Ms. Manning, the town community room, those revenues, I will be seeking those and a
Okay.
track of those.
And I wanted to reference one other packet of information. This is for you all to carry with you tonight and look over. These are the comprehensive reports from the non-town agencies that were funded in the current budget year we are in. And they're due at the end of March. And so it's to give you the picture of what these agencies and groups did with the money that they received from the town. So one of the first things I will anticipate points of discussion on the 21st is to get an insight from council as to your desire to fund non-town agencies for the 26-27 year. As it stands right now, we have not sent out any applications. We have not started any process because we will wait until council decides to fund or not to fund. But I did want to send you with this, excuse me, with this information tonight so that you can begin to look over what each agency reported in terms of how the money was spent and the services they have provided to Winterville.
I have On the notable items for the grants funding, the 510,000 for the radios, the 750,000 for our training ground, and the 1 million for the Waterloo project. My question is, what's the update in time? Do we know exactly when we might be able to receive those funds? And my second question is, do we know what the total cost is going to be for these items that we are purchasing? Because right now, we do have, if we receive the 750,000, does it will cover all that we're planning on ordering, or is there going to be a balance?
So I can speak to, so from the funding aspect of these grants, they were worked on through Congressman Murphy's office. And so that allocation, once they worked with us back and forth, they communicate with very specific departments at the federal level, and each one of those departments will reach back out to us. We have heard from the one department that handles the radios. We have not heard from the other two departments yet. However, I've been in communication with Congressman Murphy's office, and, you know, the process is going. It just, they have not given us a timeline as of yet. And so with regard to the radios itself, they have been, we're working on getting those out and distributed. We're also looking for funding for the, try to get some funding for the fire department radios, because we need new radios in both the fire and police department. So we may have to, you know, identify some funding source to cover that. As far as the fire training facility cost, we are going out for bid on that right now, looking at the design build project. And once that information comes back is available, we'll provide that to the council.
Anthony, the radio project in total for police and fire was around $1.2 million.
That's
So
correct.
we know we're getting the 510, and so that would come off the 1.2, and then unless we find some other funding source, we would be borrowing the balance.
That's correct.
Okay.
And then the water line projects, one of them is going to be incorporated with the Railroad Street project.
Yes.
And then we have a separate water line, and then the remainder of the funding will be used to design the water tower.
And do we have the bids on those yet?
No, sir, not on that.
Yes, the mayor just asked about continued efforts to receive additional funding through some of our elected officials, and that conversation is an ongoing conversation. So we currently have requests in to Senator Tillis's office in Washington at the state level, just to continue to try to get some of this discretionary funding, or through some of the more formalized programs that they have, and some of that still remains to be answered as to whether we'll be successful.
I have a question. Were two-way radios purchased already? So they
ma'am.
were purchased?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that separate than these police radios?
No, ma'am.
So we're talking about, because they were purchased, we're talking about recouping, I just need clarity.
We're talking about, you all approved for us to go out and borrow that money, up to 1.2 and some change, if I'm correct. And so the 510 that we were successful in getting through Congressman Murphy's office, that 510 will come off of the total of 1.2 million. And so we will have the balance that we would either need to try to find funding for, and we're trying to obtain that currently, or we would have to borrow the balance and pay on that debt service.
Thank you, and I just want to just be clear, I believe I voted against that, just because I know you said y'all. I voted against that, and then I voted against that because I felt like if the current radios were not falling to pieces, it was not needed at that time for the police radios. I just want to be clear for that.
Well, and if I could just follow up on that, this is a combination of police and fire radio needs, police changing radio system that they were utilizing, and obviously the radios that we had to purchase are needed on both sides, police and fire, in order to continue to operate.
Manager Parker, and y'all help me if I remember incorrect. So it was an issue of there wasn't communication between our various service, police, fire, rescue, EMS, because of the radio issues. And so there wasn't the ability for them to communicate effectively to provide the services needed for the constituents, which is why we approved to purchase a radio so that we could get them on a system that would serve the purpose that is needed for public safety.
That's correct, and I would also say that it wasn't just Winterville. I mean, this is a
Statewide.
much bigger need, and many departments were having to try to find similar funding.
So the Motorola is the main provider of these radios, and they, after equipment, you know how all technology is, after a certain amount of time, they start sunsetting their service. So we were running up against a clock on how long they would continue to service the radios that we do have. So we may be in some departments, if they're not able to get funding or make new purchases, maybe have radios that they can't get serviced in the future.
I have a question. Will these radios allow, like, them to communicate with Greenville, or if it's necessary with Aden? Are they designed so that you can do it between departments, or what will it be?
Yes, ma'am.
That's correct.
It will be?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And also to, during the town and state dinner, I also had a conversation with Dr. Reeder, and I also spoke with Representative Brown and gave them a copy of our, wish list, pretty much. And they both said that it's all dependent on what comes out of short session, what kind of money that is kind of left over, what Dr. Reeder informed me, and so he do know that we're looking as well. So that's another thing.
Can we get copies of that wish list? Because
Anthony, yeah.
we don't ever know when we're gonna run into our legislators.
Right.
We're going up this week, and we'll be talking, and it would be good if we're all talking the same thing.
Sure, I'll be glad to send that out, no problem.
One last question about the radios. They were purchased, am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Are they working, are they functioning, and what's the time frame of them functioning? Because they were purchased via like borrowed money that needs to be paid back. Are they working, and are they interchangeably between towns, or doing the functions that they were said to do at this time?
Gonna ask Chief Moore to come up. He's our radio expert. He may not appreciate I said that.
So the police radios are in service. The fire radios, the mobiles are in service. The portables are not. We're waiting on a shipment of batteries that should be here any time, and then that'll be complete.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
And I did get a tutorial from the police department during the Easter event out there. The officer showed me inside his car the new radios. I think they was missing a couple face plates or something that have now come in, I think. Is that right, Lieutenant Hamilton? Yeah, but showing me how they interact, touch screen, like a Google map to it. So it was quite interesting.
Mayor, members of the council, I think that's all staff had planned to present this evening.
Anyone else have any questions? Anybody down this end? Any more
Yeah.
questions?
Now, this increase from CMSD, trying to figure out, will our increase cover
No, ma'am.
our 8.2?
The $8.20, I think I just did that off memory, if that's correct, is to cover the debt service only for the pump station rehabilitation project we are trying to wrap up.
So the 88,000 here, is that supposed to be, would that be covered by our present rate?
We hope so.
Okay, so wouldn't be need, and another increase would not be needed to cover that?
We're gonna do our best to not have to bring forward any additional, rate increases. What I will say, though, is just remind council that, in the past few years, we have just about balanced every fund with fund balance or retained earnings. And I've heard this council say that, you know, you would like to balance with no use of fund balance and retained earnings. So I did a very basic mathematical calculation of just general fund and the 1.8 million that I think we used to balance the budget this current year that we're in, and it would take a 20-cent increase on the tax rate to cover that. So then you may say, well, gosh, there must be a lot of things that town can cut, a lot of fat to cut to help with that. And I think if anybody looks at the budget, you'll see that it's a lean budget. The number of employees we have compared to other comparable sized jurisdictions is much lower than those other jurisdictions. We're a full-service organization. So I will just say that the challenge remains trying to find additional revenue sources to cover the deficits that come every year between what's needed and the amount of money that comes in to pay for it. So,
How
that was
many
a-
vacancies do we have?
I have to defer to Angie. Vacancies. Angie, come on up to the podium.
I would say about 12 vacancies.
That's including police chief?
That's
That is
correct.
included.
Now, those have been, I would say, rather fluid in terms of ebbing and flowing, so, you know, we'll get some hired and then we'll have some additional vacancies. So, I know Angie and company have been working very hard to fill those.
Okay, going back to the sewer,
Yes,
the $8.20
yes.
increase, yeah, that we would have to pay for that pump station. The term on that, how long is it? What should be paid off?
I'm gonna defer to, this is 20 years?
20 years?
20 years.
Okay. Okay,
That's one project.
that's one part.
That doesn't include any of the other projects and any increases needed to just operate.
So the $8.20 will help towards making those yearly payments.
One payment
One payment.
on one project. Yes, the yearly payments on one project. It's the debt service, it's the additional rate needed to cover the debt service for the pump station project.
Yes.
Yes,
8.20 years.
that's a 20-year term, yes, sir.
I have another question, and I know, I'm speaking as a council person, but I'm also speaking as a citizen who have lived in Winterville since 1998. We have lots of developers coming in, right? And like I keep saying, the more people, the more population, the more strain on our service. Can somebody, please, I know this is a gist and maybe we'll get into the weeds later, but what incentives are these flow of developers? What is Winterville getting from all of these developers outside of more strain on the sewer, more strain on the, and I'm not saying I'm against growth. I'm just saying, what incentives Are we getting? Somebody please help me with that.
I'll invite Assistant Town Manager Bowers up to help me, but I think the idea is that a development comes in, they pay system development fees on the utility side of things, and that is money that can then be spent for future capital growth type projects. Then, obviously, once those developments begin and we have individual houses, you have increased tax revenue that will then go towards helping pay for our services, police, fire, et cetera. So it puts more people paying into the pot that needs to be paid for. So, Anthony, words of wisdom?
No, I mean, I think, you know, obviously growth does bring a lot of hurdles. And so one of the things we did just a few years ago was a system development fee. It's allowed by general statute. We cooperate or work with the engineering firm to determine a rate. And so they go into the weeds on looking at, you know, what our capital improvement program looks like, what our operating costs are, the growth rates. And so they'll get in there and they'll do a study, and then they come back and they make a recommendation on what the system development fee is and how it's structured. And typically what you'll see on the water sewer side of the house is our system is set up based on the meter size. So just for an example, you might say system development fee for each 3/4 inch meter in a development, that developer has to pay, you know, $1,200. And for each same size, he might, on the sewer side, he might have to pay, you know, $2,000. So for each lot, each meter that comes in on our rate structure determines how much that developer has to pay. And so while does that eliminate, you know, the burden on the town? Not completely. It's not intended to. In fact, we only adopted a rate that was 50% of what we were allowed to by the state. So based on the calculation that came back from the engineering firm, just say on average we charge between water and sewer, we get about, just say on average we get about $3,500. We could, by law, charge them $7,000.
And Anthony, that's per house, per structure,
Right.
just for clarification.
Yep. So, however, that didn't tie into what the market was doing around here either. So to keep from basically shutting down development, we looked at what the market was doing with their rates. And so we adopted a system development fee that was in line with the rest of the county. And so we are trying to recoup some of those costs, and we do take those funds and apply them to capital projects. And so every year, whatever we receive from those funds go into capital reserve fund.
And thank you so much for explaining that. But this capital improvement plans are for the projects, right? And then, but a lot of the projects are having to go with aligning infrastructure to the growth. Am I correct? And or just over time, but also to the growth. So the monies that are coming in are helping us to maintain the growth. So it's a cycle.
Yeah, the intent by the general statute, and it's been a while since I read it, but the intent is to try to reduce the burden on the current existing utility ratepayers. And so that any expansion that's needed for a new development is some of that burden is taken away from the existing ratepayers, and so that's the intent of the system development fee, is to try to recoup some of those funds. And I will say too, we've done a lot of studies lately, and a lot of people say, well, you know, the studies don't really get us anywhere, and they do and they don't. I mean, we have to find money to implement what's identified in these studies, but they also give us opportunities. And so one study bleeds into another study, and becomes a review. So next at our May meeting, you'll see our sewer system improvement plan that's wrapping up, and that budget, off the top of my head, I think if I looked at all the projects over the next 10 years, we're at like $54 million. And so, when next time we reevaluate our system development fees, we'll have better numbers to work with to give to the engineering firm who's doing that study. So then that in turn will probably, will give us more leverage in what we can do with our system development fees. So it's it's an integrated, network, and all these things come together.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Anthony, one question to go along with that is, for instance, if we have like collapse, which is pipes, before we actually visit to see the needs of it, do we wait until it actually collapses before we start talking about investing money into repair? Or once it starts collapsing, do we start addressing the issues?
I think each project's assessed individually by staff. I mean, it varies, probably gonna depend on the volume of water, the location, how many people it's affected, the cost. All those things would play a factor into how fast the town responds. Because we had emergency repairs last year.
Exactly, that's the reason why I'm asking
And
that.
so, one of the things too, again, with studies is, we were able to identify some problems and plan ahead, whereas before we had never done that. Stormwater AIA is what it was called. And you may remember the very, very lengthy presentation from Rivers and Associates a couple months ago. And so they went in and assessed pretty much all of our drainage infrastructure, and then staff can go back and see, prioritize based on the information that they found. So hopefully we'll catch some of that stuff ahead of time before it becomes an emergency.
Before it becomes an emergency.
Correct.
Yes, because there's one that I'm speaking of in Pacific, and I think they're here tonight. It's right there on Myrtle Avenue, and it's it appeared that it hasn't collapsed completely, but I think it's in the process of collapsing. It's one of the,
Thing on Vernon Avenue?
it's on Myrtle.
Myrtle.
Myrtle, Myrtle. I thought you said Vernon.
I thought
Myrtle.
you said Vernon.
You don't know anything?
I'll be glad to check it out, but I'm not
Okay,
I'm not
you
aware
don't
of
know
it.
anything about that, Anthony?
Well, also too,
All
Cliff,
right.
I mean,
That's
Cliff,
all, we're fine with that.
Cliff, while you're up there, that's the reason why y'all purchased that camera, correct? That camera will help identify all these type areas that we're asking about now,
Yeah.
where you could be able to run the camera through and get a scope of what's going on, so we can identify these areas, correct?
Yeah, new regulations coming down the pipe. We'll camera our stormwater system the same as we do our sewer system.
Good, okay.
Thank you.
Any more? Anybody else have anything?
Said, on Myrtle, I know you remember you came and went down and investigated those drainage behind the houses on Myrtle,
Oh, in the back, you talking about
Yeah,
by the church?
behind the church.
I was thinking like on Myrtle Street.
Is it on the street or?
It's on the street. I mean, yeah,
But
the ones who lives on Myrtle.
What is giving you that? What makes you think it's collapsing? Is the street caving in, or is the,
Yes, yes.
okay. We'll check that out tomorrow. Because there was some patching done on the sewer project. There could be another one of those patches sinking. But I'll verify tomorrow what's going on there. That's the first I've heard of it, but I'll be glad to check it out.
I'll walk with you on Friday.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else? Now, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor, motion made by Councilman Moore, and second by Councilwoman Robinson. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.